money moves. Like, how was he making those sort of money moves in a penthouse suite, at hotels, still jet set? Like, he had a charter. He hired what did he do? He gave that man $1,000 to start a new documentary, filming all the little bits and pieces of his irrelevant life, paying people to do these things.
Why are you hating on how he will use other people's money? That's his business, how he chooses to use other people's money that he has taken from them fraudulently. That's his personal business.
You can't even say it without cracking up, because you know that's farce. That's foolishness.
That man was sitting up there on bail in a penthouse doing a new documentary and running a new scam. And I said
on camera.
And when they say that first world privilege does not exist, I want them to look at this right here.
Documentary 1 and 2.
Because here's the thing. It's first world privilege because you don't need to do this to pay any bills. You were back in your mama's basement, in your father's basement. You did this because you were trying to perpetuate a lifestyle that you, in the heart of who you are, knew you couldn't perpetuate. And so at that point, that man was fighting against his own delusion. Like, he was so caught up in the fantasy of who he was that he never took that step back and looked and said, this really ain't gonna happen. And if he's like people I know,
Tomas,
going on,
it's not a delusion. I think, and tell me if I'm not hearing you correctly, there's never any metacognition on his part that, let me see what I can get away with. He is just living his life. You're using the word delusion, and what I'm saying is that is his reality. For you, it would be a delusion. There has to be a conscious decision to say, all right, I don't have this money, but I need to figure out a way to get it. And I might have to scheme and work around some things to be able to do that. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to make up for that later. I don't think he has that level of metacognition. I think he's just like, okay, that costs $5 million. Let me see where I can go get it. This dude had like bags of cash at one point. And so he asked a grown man to commit prostitution to get to bribe a customs official.
Well, we need water. Take one for the team. Take one, hashtag take one for the team. Take one for the team
is like, you know what, Brenda, could you send the email out on behalf of the group?
No.
To the manager saying we're going to be late for the deadline?
Take one for the team is, you know what, how's your chapstick game? Are your lips moist? Take one for the team. And for those who haven't seen that Netflix documentary, you need to see that Netflix documentary for that part right there. But I want to address what you're saying, because you, again, are a psychologist. So you are going to speak from that perspective. So you're speaking from the perspective of the person. I'm speaking from the perspective of us looking at the person. So yes, I am speaking externally, looking at him and saying it would be like me being pulled over by a cop and jumping up and saying, this is egregious. I'm a white man in America. How dare you pull me over? And the cop looking at me real crazy, like, what are you doing? But in my mind, I'm convinced that I'm a white man. That's my reality, but it's still a delusion whether it's my reality or not, because this is not your real life. And he was unwilling to come to terms with his real life, which was he made $60,000 between the years of 2017 to 2018. Yet he was running company that was basically trading millions of dollars of other people's money. Bags of cash you're dropping off paying people. What? First of all, who pays in a bag of cash? Who does that? From
Trump. Because didn't he give Michael Cohen a directive to pay with a bag of cash and a boxing glove? Didn't that just come out in the indictment?
Nope. You know I'm not doing it.
I'm just asking.
You know I'm not doing that.
I mean, I feel like that's something factual.
I'm trying to keep my business license. I'm not doing anything of what you're doing because I know the Patriot Act is still in effect, and people. I know you are. You the focus of many surveillance.
But her subversive political ideologies.
Socialist
but so that moves me into our next point. We very much live in a time where concrete material realities don't always align with how our worlds are structured. And so for someone like him to come along, he's seen as an innovator because he's moving the needle to the next level. He's a visionary. In the one Netflix documentary, there were lots of examples of people kept saying, I couldn't tell if this dude was just crazy or a genius. I couldn't tell if he was crazy or a visionary. I couldn't tell if he was like a sociopath or a creative, innovator. The line, I think, becomes increasingly blurred. And for people like him, they're able to get in that gap, to get in that intersection and take advantage of it.
Can I just say this, though?
They're only able to do that because we live in a time where being a social influencer is an actual job.
Yeah. It's a great job, too. I try to influence people to listen to Dupee Deep with Dr. Nikki every time I send out a tweet. But no, seriously, I mean, I'm serious about that.
But is Spotify sending you swag bags and paying your bills, though? iTunes, are they doing that for you? Because if so, then I need to keep that.
We're sorry, we've lost. takes swag bags, puts them in the closet, in the back of the closet. No, seriously. So, but this is important. I think that there's a disconnect here. And I think that you are looking at this person and looking at how this person is living his life, right? But I think that in doing so, you're looking at how he's living his life for himself instead of how he's living his life for others. Like, I've come to believe...
I do both.
Oh, okay. Because I've come to believe that there are people who don't necessarily live their lives for them. They live their lives to be an influencer, to get the clicks, the likes, and they're like that. But that's who they are. And anything else that is not congruent with that message just cannot exist in their world. So that becomes, their whole thing. I just think he took it too far. Obviously he took it too far, but you know what I mean? Like he lived that lifestyle. Of course he's going to be in a penthouse doing a video. Of course. Where else would he be? And to him, this kind of thing is like, that's a no-brainer. Like, to say anything else would be for you to say, oh, well, why didn't you have dinner today? Like, it's a simple thing. It's something you do.
Right. So here's what I'm saying, though. This is where my concern comes in, or where I find problem in that behavior, is that we live in a time where that sort of lifestyle can become commoditized. That's what social influence is. I live a brand. I am a brand. In one of the videos, there's a social influencer, and the journalist asked, what is your brand? What does that mean? You have a brand? And he can't even articulate what that actually means. So it's like people have adopted these concepts that actually have meaning, that are attached to actual material things, and then they create this space kind of one step removed from it and live in this false reality. And what I'm saying is, for those folks that paid to go to the Fyre Festival because they wanted to be a part of that, this exclusivity as a lure, they wanted to be able to taste and touch and be in that, even if it was for a 2-day, 3-day weekend. The real life consequences is what slapped them in the face. Like, there were people who quit their jobs so they could go to do this thing. People who sold their cars so they could go and do this thing. There are real life consequences for you now, because you got to take your crusty butt back home and you can't pay your rent next month. for the allure of partying with some pigs in the water? Are you kidding me?
Well, I don't know if their butts are.
I'm saying that there's a slippery slope, and we have to be really careful about how we lose our capacity for reality these days.
Right. I agree with you. I don't know if their butts are crusty though, but I do agree with you.
Did you see a shower?
I saw an ocean. They could have waded in the water. Listen.
You know that plane was right.
So
they were out in the sun for 6 hours, drinking and sweating.
I think. So I'm going to draw this parallel. Unpopular, unfavorable parallel. I think that when you look at people like him and the other guy, the young guy whose name just escaped me, but he's the one who was running the pharmaceutical company, and he took the HIV medicine thousands of dollars, that kind of thing. All right, so when you look at people like that, and then you look at people like, let's say Maduro, because he's in the news now. There's something to be said about someone who is able to persuade other people and onboard them into their dreams. And you can say that of dictators, of fascists. I'm not going to get into the whole, Hitler comparison, because I don't think it's fair to the people who died to compare this to what happened in World War II.
Right.
But there is something about
leaders.
Right. Yeah. There is something about that mentality that I think we should maybe sit back and say, what is it about that? Because while you're looking at the people who spent their money, right, and did that, I actually can understand that. Because if I had the disposable income to do so and was so inclined to fly down and be with a group of people that I didn't know on the beach, like that kind of thing doesn't interest me. But if it did, and I did do it, and that happened, I wouldn't see it as sort of me buying into anything. It's the same thing when I go down to the Winter Music Conference. I go down to the conference. I stay at the host hotel. I, participate in the Indie Music Awards. It's a great time. Right?
I hear that. But here's what I see as the big distinction. Two pieces. One, the charismatic leaders, the sorts of folks that you named in your examples. Those are people who are dysfunctional. They're not healthy people. So therefore, they shouldn't be a model for the average person. They shouldn't be a model for anyone. It's like saying Ted Bundy was able to really get those young black men. Is Ted Bundy the one that ate Dahmer.
Dahmer, yeah.
Jeffrey Dahmer was sure able to get all those black men in his car, and then he kept them in his freezer.
He was so sexy, though.
He was so smooth with it.
Yes.
No, we don't want to emulate
right.
psychotic, delusional, sociopathic con artist behavior, because it's bereft of accountability. It's lacking empathy. If you want to get into a moral conversation, it is amoralistic. That's not reality for all of us. We have a social contract about how to be. Otherwise, we descend into full chaos.
Right.
So we have to be able to find the line to be able to say, that's not the person I want to be like. And what I'm saying to you is, as social media continues to build in its epicness, in its capacity to shape our reality, our capacity to be able to determine who we should try to be like and who we shouldn't gets blurrier and blurrier and blurrier.
Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Thanks for downloading or streaming Dupee Deep with Dr. Nikki. You've been listening to part 2 of our 3-part conversation, #FOMO. Tune in this Friday for the conclusion of our conversation. And make sure you subscribe to Dupee Deep with Dr. Nikki via your favorite podcast catcher app. That way, you'll never miss an episode.